Hi, I'm Gavin. So today I'm going to talk to you about the 35mm lens or 35mm lenses. Now, it's a bit of an interesting one. This 35 is a strange focal length for me because normally I would jump between 28 or 50 or go even lower. And 35 is a very general focal length. This is for full frame cameras. It takes on a very different meaning when you use it for crop sensors or Super 35 film. So, I mean, there's tons of them around. This is sort of knockoff Yongo one that I've got for my F100. See here. Actually, I'll take the cap off. See it here. And then I've got another one here, which is a very high-end 35mm lens, which is a Carl Zeiss Distagon, which is on the front of my, get that in focus, Contact RX. Now, like I said, they're sort of general lenses as such. You can get a lot in with them. They're really handy. It's a bit of a strange one. If you're used to full frame photography like me, when you see the field of view of a 35, it's always been that field of view. However, over the years, when we move between crop sensors and all these sorts of things into digital, it's sort of taken on a new meaning, and it's always had a different meaning for 35 if you shoot film, like not film from motion picture film. Because of the size of like a Super 35 frame, the field of view you actually get from a 35mm lens is equivalent to, I think it's 51mm. So in Super 35, or for cinematography terms, it's basically their standard 50. So you see a lot of use of the 35mm lens on film sets, and I think it confuses a lot of people when they're moving now into the world of full frame digital cameras, but video cameras, when they're so used to sort of a 35 looks like this, when it doesn't. A 35 looks a very particular way on a full frame sensor, but it looks very different on a sort of a Super 35 sensor. So I mean, all the films that you've watched, Schindler's List, all these kind of movies over the years, and there's a really good example of this. Call Me by My Name is a movie that was completely shot on a 35mm lens. The entire film is shot on a 35mm lens. I think it's a Cook S4, maybe not. It was also shot on the same film stock. It was also shot on tungsten Kodak 500T, the entire movie. So when I said, oh my God, it's all shot on 35mm lens, a lot of people's brains will jump to 35mm, but it's shot obviously on film, so it's a crop. It's not a crop. The field of view on Super 35 is different, so it's really they shot it in full frame terms on a 51mm lens, and that's why it looks like it does. So this whole crop sensor, crop sensor full frame thing, it's always been a bit of a weird one. Like me, I came up with full frame because it's film. So my brain looks at a scene and goes, okay, that would mean I need a 50, I need a 28, I need an 85, I need this, because my brain is geared to that. And I used to have enormous problems when we jumped into cinematography, we did cinematography stuff, where it'd be like, oh, you put the 50 on that, and my brain wouldn't comprehend what the 50 was going to give me. It'd be like 73. So I couldn't see it. So I had to sort of uneducate myself to what these lenses look like. But now the world's changed, thankfully. And so for us full frame people who've always thought of full frame, the cameras now, we're seeing large format, we're seeing red cameras, we're seeing the thing that this is being shot on, which is a Canon R5C. That's a full frame camera. And it also, this has a 35mm lens on it. This has a Canon EF 35, I think it's 1.2. So I knew when I set this up what it looked like, because I know what a 35mm lens looks like. Normally I'd shoot like 40, 43 or something, 45 for interviews, or I'm not a fan of the 50. But we did some interviews the other day, and it was quite strange because I used a C70 for those interviews with a full frame there. The C70 is a Super 35 sensor, but it does have an adapter which makes it full frame, gives it a full frame field of view. It's a Canon one. So when we were like, put the 50 on, it's like, well, it's not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. And then there was a bit of a kerfuffle where we put the 50 on. I mean, I knew what it was going to look like, but then it doesn't look what people think it's going to look like, because if they've come up on Super 35 sensors, especially in video cameras, lots of video cameras had Super 35 sensors. but it's a big change. Like things like the FS7, Sony FS7, Super 35 sensor. Now they brought out the FX6 and the FX30, FX3. These are all full frame sensors. So for me, I know what was going on. It's fascinating, isn't it? You sort of all that old technology as we went to crop. We didn't think, that we'd need our brain to re-educate again. So, now. So yeah, so 35 is an interesting one, and it does cause these, with that Call Me By My Name, which was completely shot on that format, it sort of does cause up these things for cinematography. For photographers, it's not so much of an issue. You can choose your 30, maybe you've got a fast zoom, but 35 is a great focal length on a camera. You can cover a lot with a 35. 25, 28 is much more my favourite. I don't go to 50 very often, I'm not a fan of it. But 35 is a great focal length, and you can do a lot more. It's not quite as wide as 28. It's not quite as tight as a 50. So it's a really, really useful lens. There's tons of them out there. You can get very fast ones now as well. They've seemed to go nuts with 35s, especially because of the full frame sort of look. I think the equivalent look for 35 would be 20, would it be 21 or something? 20, I don't know, on a crop sensor. You'd be looking at a 20mm lens. That would give you a 35 on a crop, but obviously it's a 20 on a full frame. Anyway, it is a sort of bizarre subject. It's sort of like crossing the line between cinematography and photography, but it has, because we now do hybrid video on cameras, it has confused people with when they read these articles about, I don't know, Schindler's List's favourite lens was a 35 or something. I don't know if that's true. They try and recreate those looks on their video cameras. Even things like the Komodo is still Super 35. And then all of a sudden they don't quite work out what they're doing. They sort of hang on a minute and they're a bit lost. Some generations come up and they can just do it because that's how their brain thinks. But for me, from a film photography background, my brain is stuck. That's what a 50 looks like. That's what 35 looks like. That's what a 90 is like, etc. And I can still do it today. And I mean, thankfully, the days of me having to reverse engineer what a 50mm looks like for a video camera are nearly over. This thing's case in point with an R5C or any camera that shoots full frame. You're made. Anyway, 35mm. It's a great focal length. It's really, and I put that in the right place. It's a great focal length. I recommend you get one. Have a play with it. Spend a lot of time using it and composing with it and framing with it. It's very, very useful. And it become a personal choice. I mean, it's sort of like 35 can be your 28 sort of thing, or 35 can be your 50. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to capture. It's great for street photography and things like that. Anyway, there you go, 35mm. It's an interesting focal length, isn't it? It's sort of like right in the middle sweet spot where you can basically get a lot in or not so much. I know people who do portraits with it, but yeah, 35mm, worth buying a couple of them, having a play and seeing what you can get. Anyway, thanks for watching.